Axelrod, his topic is winning the new game of IP, how to capitalize, monetize, and actualize your intellectual property. Mitch is a 47-year entrepreneur, speaker, trainer, advisor, and five-time #1 Wall Street Journal, Barnes & Noble, and Amazon bestselling author of The New Game of Business and The New Game of Selling. He's delivered 4,000 plus seminars, workshops, and keynotes to over 1 million people. His clients, IBM, AT&T, Citibank, Prudential, MetLife, and thousands of others, have generated $4 billion in revenue, and he's on faculty at Harvard's Executive Leadership Conference. So welcome, Mitch. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. My dad was a New York City cop, and he would, if he were here alive today, he would say, all that in 250 will get you on the subway.
That's great.
I really appreciate being here, and thank you all for staying. I know it's been a long day. I'm going to try to keep you alive and awake. If you have to walk around, whatever you have to do, feel free to do it. I'm going to get on my slides here. Let me know if, how do I do this? Do I have to share? Can I share?
Yep, you're okay to share.
You can share your slides, yep.
There we go, okay. And tell me if they're showing up.
Yes, they're showing.
Okay, great. Am I in the upper left-hand corner?
If you want to put them in display mode, you can.
Well, am I in the upper left-hand corner, or do you just see my slides?
You're in the upper left corner.
Okay, great. So let's get going here. All right. So I am going to be talking to you today about a game I love to play called The New Game of IP and how to capitalize and monetize your intellectual property. The purpose of the game we're playing here is to sell, license, and actually rent your content to businesses and organizations and corporations. Now, hopefully you're alive and with me, because I'm going to ask you a very important question right off the bat. What is the most valuable real estate in the world? Somebody want to tell me what the most valuable real estate in the world is? Now, usually when I ask this question, I can't see your chat. I get the Beverly Hills, which is just north of me, Manhattan, south of France. All right, they're all good answers. The truth is, the most valuable real estate in the world is the 6 inches between your ears. That's what we call intellectual property. Now, according to the World Bank, not me, each of us has $700,000 of unrealized, unmonetized intellectual property. And my game is all about how to release it, how to get it from in between your ears into a form in which you can sell it or rent it or license it. And just to give you a sense of how big this economy is, the World Intellectual Property Organization says intellectual property is a major currency in the new economy of knowledge. In this new economy, wealth is generated through the creation and control of intellectual property. Netflix is going to spend 17 billion, with a B, billion, this year on programming. Programming is intellectual property. And right now, 92% of corporate value is in intangible intellectual assets. 50 years ago, that number was only 8%. It was in real estate and capital assets and receivables. So the world is changing. And to show you the opportunity, IP is the new wealth creator. There's $5 trillion in the US economy that is in IP-intensive industries. That's 1/3 of our GDP. 27 million jobs. 1 out of every 5 jobs in America now is in IP-intensive industries. $775 billion. Can't even fathom these numbers. Representing 61% of the U.S.-based merchandise exports. And the number that should jump out at you is $600 billion in estimated worldwide licensing royalty revenues. And we just want a little piece of that pot, okay? So let me talk about IP. IP is equity. You can use it to get other people's resources. You can trade or barter or exchange. I've traded my IP. We have a little background noise. Is that coming from me? We're having a little squeak. Somebody help me and let me know. Okay. You can trade, you can barter, you can exchange it. I've traded my IP, bartered for vacation homes, cruises, furniture, cars, and money. And you can use it to actually take a stake in the businesses in which you are operating in. Interesting. IP is content marketing. Now, you know that just about everything in marketing has moved the past 5 or 10 years to content marketing. What you probably don't know is that 84% of the content creation in B2B organizations is outsourced, which means that they are looking for content, and your content could be used as marketing fodder or marketing currency. And so there might be a company out there that would match up very well with your IP, and that as a result, you would be able to license, sell, or possibly rent your content to provide an ongoing stream of content that they could use to market, open up new markets, give as a premium for their clients, generate leads, whatever it may be. And IP is a really great game to play. Here's the reason why. You already have it. It's a unique and valuable skill. Very few people are playing this game. It's still the ground floor of opportunity, and it probably will be for the next three to 5 years. And I'm going to tell you that in my experience, it is actually easier than selling products. And I'm going to show you why. So what you want to do is you want to capitalize your intangible wealth. You want to monetize and generate cash flow. And then you want to actualize so you can have a bigger impact. Wayne Dyer said that if you change the way you look at things, and the things that you look at change. So one of the major shifts in the way you look at your IP, your content, the value of what you're created. About 35 years ago, everybody was talking about get outside the box, get outside the box, get outside the box. What I realized is going outside the box, you're still tethered to the box. You're just inside a bigger box. So I started talking about no box thinking, no boxes, no borders, no boundaries. And so if you can embrace no box thinking, you break down the borders and boundaries that trap you inside of whatever thinking you have. And now you can do what's known as tabula rasa, clean slate. And when you have a clean slate, you can create almost anything. So let me show you how I embrace no box thinking. The first thing is I want to share with you what I perceive to be the difference between information product and IP, and how you can begin to transform what you already have created without creating anything new from an information product like a course or a program or an 8-week mastermind or whatever into profitable intellectual property. And the first distinction is something I want to show you from 37 years ago. I was one of Jay Abraham's first proteges. Some of you may know the name Jay Abraham. Today he's considered one of the greatest marketing minds in the world. And we sat through a week-long program with Jay. And outside the doors of the room, there was a UPS kiosk. And the reason there was a UPS kiosk is because we got 2 boxes filled with audio tapes and videotapes and workbooks and worksheets and binders and everything you can imagine. We couldn't take it on the plane. We had to ship it. Okay. And that was the game for probably the following 30 years. It was a game of form. However, the IP game is a game of essence. And this is a huge, huge distinction that I want you to begin to embrace. Intellectual property is essence, the essence that creates the form. And the problem with form is you can only sell it once. So in other words, one person buys one product, all right? Whereas essence can be redeployed, repurposed, you can sell it, you can rent it, you can license it, all right? And so the real shift from the old game to the new game is the old game was based on what was called the thud factor. Like the more you get, the more valuable the package was. The new game is completely different. Less is more. And as you're going to see as we go forward, that if you can solve one problem with one piece of IP, a formula, a framework, a model, a sequence, a model, a module, you can turn what is maybe a 10-part book into 4 or 5 interventions. You could take a course into a multi engagement, okay? Because people no longer have the capacity to get the thud factor. I'm not a fan of bonus loading, like putting 100 bonuses into something, and certainly not in the corporate world. So we'll talk more about that as we go forward. Your positioning in the IP game is very different. When you're selling a product, a course, a program, all right, you're perceived as a vendor. Now, you may be a preferred vendor, but you're a vendor, all right? And you're on 2 sides of the table, and their side of the table is the buying side, and your side of the table is the selling side. So you sell it, and they buy it. When you're in an IP conversation, it's a completely different context. You are now seen as a partner. It's a collaborative, cooperative conversation designed to figure out what is the highest and best solution for you. And you're not in a selling mode, which makes it much easier for a lot of people who really don't like to sell. Next, as much as we love to think of it as a bigger game, sales is a zero-sum game. In other words, people buy or they don't buy. All right. You can try it, but trying it is not buying it. Whereas in the IP game, there's many possibilities. And I'm going to show you some of those possibilities as we move forward. Next, these are some of the companies that I've had the privilege to work with, either to train, to sell, to license, to rent my content. And the difference in this kind of relationship is, instead of me just profiting by a sale that I make, the conversation is all about how do we profit and how do we deploy my IP to your benefit. And so when you're in a cooperative, collaborative conversation, you're no longer seen as a salesperson. You're no longer seen as a vendor. And when you're actually moving to the other side of the table with them, you are working together to come up with a solution to a problem they have or an opportunity they would like to pursue. And so the context of the conversation shifts, your positioning shifts, and a lot of the heavy breathing that goes into closing a sale disappears because you're looking for agreement and commitment. You're not closing a sale. And then what I like maybe most is, instead of reaching one person at a time, you can multiply your message, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. I've had the privilege of training 1 million people face to face, and now the last 5 years on Zoom. I could have never done that one person at a time. So one of the big advantages of being in the corporate space, as much as everybody fears it because they don't know what to say or how to say it, is that when you're having a collaborative conversation, it's a more natural conversation than a selling conversation. So it eliminates the pressure. You don't feel the need to have to sell or persuade or manipulate or close. So let me share with you what I think are the major distinctions in these two games. Start with information. Information products we tend to create, develop, and build ourselves. And then we sell them, all right? And the majority of people I've trained over the years, the reason they've come to me for training is how to sell. They're not naturally gifted at selling. There's stigma attached to selling. There's discomfort attached to selling. But as I've said from the very beginning, selling, as you know now, is really serving, and especially in the game that we're playing. Second thing is you tend to package it your way. So if you have a program, if you have a course, if you have a book, a product, whatever it may be, you tend to package it the way you would like it to be designed, the way you would like it to show up. As a consumer who buys it, it's an expense. So if I buy a course for $1,000 or $2,000, that is an expense until I deploy it and convert it to profit. Now, if you've been around this industry for any period of time, and you've probably done this yourself, you've bought programs, courses, whatever, and you haven't actually gotten your return of investment, let alone return on investment. I think the number is something like 80 to 90% of people who buy courses and programs, not only don't they finish it, a good majority of them don't start it, all right? You're seen as a vendor. So again, you sell and they buy. It's a zero-sum decision. And then if all this works out, you make a profit. The intellectual property game is different. And I'm going to show you a couple of scenarios that actually I learned early on in the game, that you can actually sell it first, then create it, build it, and develop it. Now think about that. That if you could get somebody who's interested in buying something, even before you create it, before you build it, before you develop it, you could actually customize your solution their way instead of your way. And they would like to have something customized in today's world. Private labeling or customization is becoming pretty much the norm. They can deploy it as an asset. Remember, if you're having a collaborative conversation and you determine together how they're going to deploy your IP, they're thinking about it as an asset, not an expense. So now you move to the other side of the balance sheet from expense to asset. Again, you're a partner in a cooperative collaboration, and now there's many alternatives. I'm going to show you how you can disassemble and deconstruct what you've already created into parts and pieces, formulas that essentially would be worth and could be worth more than the entire package complete. And then bottom line is everybody profits, not just you. So are you ready for a little bit of a time warp? Let me take you back 34 years now. And this is where it all started for me. I'm going to take you through 3 or 4 scenarios. And I really want you to pay attention to the next few minutes, because this is how and where I learned to do what I've now been able to do and teach over 10,000 people to do. You might recognize that gentleman. His name is Brian Tracy. He was one of my mentors. He's also a friend for 40 years. And he's holding up my very first product called 21 Ways to Double Your Sales. Now, but what I want to draw your attention to is what I have on the flip chart. This is a popular phrase today. It wasn't as popular 35 years ago. I did not invent it. Big doors swing on small or little hinges. W. Clement Stone was the person who first said it. However, this became my mantra. It became my true north because I realized that if I knew where the little hinges were, I could open up massive doors. So let me tell you the story of 21 ways to double your sales. I was 4 years into my training business. I had doubled my sales 3 years in a row. And I was sitting around one day and I decided to write a table of contents. And I said, I'd like to present this program. Let me call and see who would have me in. I called around. One guy said, sure, come on in. We'll pay you for the day. And before I could ask him, he asked me, can we record the program? Now, this is in the days of cassette players, the big master cassette decks and whatnot. I said, sure, one condition. I get the masters when we're done. He said, that's fine. I knock it out of the park, comes up to me at the end of the day. He says to me, Mitch, that was great. We want it. I asked him the one question that maybe has made me more money than any question and got me more opportunity. What do you want to do with it? He said, we have 4,000 salespeople across the country. We want every single one of them to have this. How much? On the spot, he asked me how much. So some of you are old enough to remember a company called Nightingale Conant. Nightingale Conant was the biggest purveyor of audio tapes, video programs, personal and business development. They sold a 6-cassette album for $29, $39, $49 sometimes. I said to him, I'll tell you what, I want $10 a person, one condition. You master it, you duplicate it, you package it, you ship it. I don't want anything to do with inventory, packaging, warehouse, duplication. I just want $10. He said, is that all? I said, yeah. He says to me, Mitch, can we put our private label on the cover? Now, realize at that time, 1992, no speaker, author, trainer would allow companies to private label because they wanted to sell their own product and their product would be good marketing. I said, absolutely, I'd be happy for you to do it. 2 weeks later, I get a check for 40 grand, send them a piece of paper, make your 4,000 copies. Calls me in 30 days later. He says, Mitch, so far we're getting great feedback. However, you know what we need? We need a workbook. I was going to turn this into a book. What a great book, 21 Ways to Double Your Sales. He said to me, do you have a workbook? I said, funny you should ask. I'm making one right now. 2 weeks, I'll have it for you. He said, how much? I said, $10, one condition. You print it, you duplicate it, you ship it. But this time, I want my logo on the cover. He said, no problem. Okay. So let's recap. I did this seminar once from a table of contents. I got paid $4,000 for the day. I made $80,000 on the recordings and the workbook with zero overhead. I owned the product. I had a beautiful package with their logo that I could take out and sell elsewhere. And over the next 3 years, let me show you what a title was worth to me. I put this ad, this was the only time I printed 1,000 copies of a program. Every other program I owned, I had one copy, and the companies that bought it, licensed it, rented it, had to make copies. I did $100,000 in licensing. We made $100,000. We charged $99, shipped 1,000 of them in 6 months. I did $100,000 in consulting. And then companies were calling me in off this ad saying, could you come in and do training and give us 5 of the 21, give us 7 of the 21, whatever. So do you have a title that is either laying dormant in your head, partially developed, but you don't have the program yet? You can model this very same thing. In fact, I would urge everybody that when you're coming out with something new, Don't go to all the time and expense to create it. Sell it first, license it first, do a seminar first, get somebody to record you, own the rights to it, license the rights back. And now not only do you have a program or a piece of IP, but you also have a client who bought it. And you can leverage one into two into four. Okay. That's the first lesson I learned on how to turn a title into a mini empire of IP. Now let me take you a year later. The very same company came back to me and they said, Mitch, we're creating a whole new corporate training program. We're putting a ton of money into it. Would you like to throw your hat in the ring? I said, well, who else is in the ring? Who else are you considering? Well, three guys you probably never heard of. I said, who are they? Brian Tracy, Stephen Covey, and Tony Robbins. I said, what? And you're asking me to throw my hat in the ring? They said, yeah, you've been working with us for a couple of years. See what you can come up with. Now, I did not have a training program. I didn't have a table of contents. I said, give me 30 days. What did I do? I wrote a table of contents. Now, here's the backstory. These guys were selling their programs for $250 a person. This company had 4,000 salespeople. They were going to spend $1 million year one. Years 2 through 6, they had 20% turnover, so they're going to have to buy 800 additional units every year for 5 years. $2 million over 6 years. And it was not their program. And these guys were not willing to private label it. By the way, they were willing to spend it. They said to me, what's your deal? I said, well, here's my deal. You put me in a studio for 3 days. You spend whatever you have to do to record it. You master it. You get the audios, the videos. I'll write the workbook, which I didn't have yet. And I will license it back to you for a one-time payment for $250,000. Now, realize this is 1992 when I had no footprint really in the marketplace. And you can make as many copies as you want. You can private label it with your company, beautiful company packaging and design. Just keep my copyrights in the middle. They said to me, Mitch, what's the catch here? I said, well, there's going to be a catch. 2 things. Number one, 6 months from now, you're going to write me a press release. And the press release is going to say, you looked at Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, and Brian Tracy, and you chose little old me. And the second thing you're going to do is you're going to write an endorsement letter with my help to your 5 biggest competitors, including Prudential, MetLife, John Hancock, and then 2 others you can pick. They said, that's all? I said, yes, because I will make the rest of my money on your competition, and I will leverage my relationship with you to get in front of them. And that's exactly what happened. They came back to me and said, we need you to go out and train this because nobody knows how to use it. So they wound up paying me another $250,000 over 18 months to go to their regions and training. And this is what that product looked like. Now, if any of you were around back in the early 90s, you probably have one of these on the shelf. I wrote a 460-page workbook by hand in 30 days. They recorded it. They packaged it, audios and videos, and we had these big 3-ring binders that were like 4 inches thick. That was the deliverable, okay? So what I did, I took that product that they packaged, and I started to go to their competition, and I showed them, hey, look at how nicely packaged it is, private label. That was my second big deal. Now, let me tell you what I learned in my next deal that totally changed the game, okay? So I want to ask you something. Are you McDonald's? Meaning, are you giving people the 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun? Are you giving them what you create your way, right? Because McDonald's says you can buy the burger, but you got to get it our way. Or are you Burger King, where somebody says, hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special orders, don't upset us. And you can have your burger your way. The old game was McDonald's. Everybody was McDonald's. You created the product, you packaged it, you sold it your way. The new game is Burger King. And let me tell you how this little shift, this little hinge of context shift totally changed my life. So I was McDonald's and I had this big package and I started carrying it around everywhere I went. And I walk into a client one day, all proud and beaming, and I said, hey, look at my new workbook. This is great. Mutual of New York is using it. Prudential is looking at it. MetLife is looking at it. And I'm a Jersey guy. I spent 45 years of my life in New Jersey. And if any of you are from New Jersey, you kind of know we're very direct, very blunt. So he throws up his hands. He says, are you crazy? I am not buying that thing. I said, hey, why not? $250. You get it all. He says, are you nuts? He said, my guys will never open it. It's too much. And so what could I say to him? Fortunately, he spoke next. He said, you know what? Open up the table of contents. Now realize I could sell hundreds of these, right? He said, I want these 5 modules. How much? Now I sat there thinking, well, why don't you just buy the whole workbook, use the 5 modules, and just throw away the rest? He said, no, I don't want the workbook. I want 5 modules. And I want you to come in here once a month, every month for the next 5 months and train my people. How much? So I said, all right, you want to play that game? $100 a piece. He said, sold. When do we start? I said, time out. What just happened here? He said, you are trying to sell it to me your way. I don't want it your way. If I won't buy it, but even if I did, I'd never get my $250 back because nobody would use it. But my way, even paying $100 a module, all I need my people to do is make one sale over the whole 6 months, and I got more than my money's worth, and then I'm in the black, and everything from that point on is profit. All right? I leaned over, I kissed him on the forehead, and I said, you just changed my life. Where I wouldn't have sold hundreds of workbooks, I sold thousands of modules. I stopped carrying the workbook. What did I start carrying? The table of contents. And I said to companies, how many modules do you want? $100 a piece. Which modules do you want? And the sale was like, all the pressure was gone because I was giving it to them the way they wanted it. And they could only consume one module at a time. And I realized I was the only Burger King at that time in a world of McDonald's. And so that is the third big aha scenario that absolutely changed my life. And for the last 30 years, I've been selling models, frameworks, formulas, bundling things together. And only on occasion do I sell a whole package to someone. This right here is worth the price of admission. I often say, is the way you think it should be preventing you from having it the way it could be? That's a very profound question I ask myself, because very often I get stuck in the way I think things should be, and I block the opportunity from having it the way it could be. So there are 3 big challenges we all face. I call it the pyramid of performance: mindset, motivation, and method. Mindset is the what. And the biggest issue in mindset is recognizing the value of your intellectual property. Motivation is the why. It's the energy, the drive, the willingness to do something, and the reward and payoff that you get. And then method is the how. And when I talk to audiences, I ask them, of all three things, which one do you want most? And invariably, people say, oh, I want the how, just show me how. But if you don't have your mindset clear, if you don't really have your head set on straight about what you're doing and what the value you bring to the world, if you don't have that motivation, the energy, the drive, I could give you 100 methods and they won't work. But if you have your motivation and your mindset aligned, you only need one method to make a huge difference. So how you think, no box thinking, understand your IP value, and have the courage to take imperfect action. Your motivation, maybe you want to improve lives. Maybe you want to build wealth. Maybe you want to leave a legacy. The why behind your what and your how is very important. And people know when you're passionate about something versus when you have a lukewarm heart. And then the method is simple. Understand the IP game, master the basics, and develop the IP skill set. So here's how you prepare. You integrate the mindset, the IP mindset. You look at your motivation and tap into it. You use proven methods. You modularize, disassemble, and deconstruct. This is the single most important part of the whole IP game. It's to not look at your products as a whole. It's to look at what is inside each of your programs that could be most valuable, most viable, and that you do by selecting, assessing, and selecting your most valuable and valuable IP. So here's something you should do as an exercise. I would bet, and you probably know this to be true, whatever you sell, programs, courses, whatever, your clients are not using everything that you deliver. So I recommend that you go back to all of your best clients, the ones you want more of, and ask them a few simple questions. What are you using most? What are you using least? What are you not using at all? What's been most valuable? What's been most successful? What do you want more of? If you had to do it all over again, what would you like me to have included? What would you like me to have left out? And you will discover that by asking those questions, that within the whole construct of what you've created, you have parts and pieces and frameworks and models and modules and formulas that could be worth more than the entire program. And then you don't have to sell a lot of what people don't want to give them what they do want. And then you ask yourself these 4 questions, which is where the rubber meets the road. Who can you sell to, meaning who can buy? Who can you sell through, meaning they can sell it? What can you rent, meaning they lease it? And how can you license, meaning they use it? So let's go through each one. Option 1 is sell to. Now, we all sell to somebody. They, as you know, they buy the change, the result, the return on investment, and the transformation, not the product or the IP. So we're back to that really important question. What do they want to do with it? And what do they want to have it do for them? And then how will they measure success so that you know that your intervention has been a reward for them and they can reinvest in you if they get quick return of investment. Option 2, sell through. This is an untapped gold mine of opportunity. Everybody that you've sold to, you can potentially sell through. They have suppliers, buyers, vendors, customers, patrons, members, distributors, agents, right? So you ask yourself, who is their audience? And if they want to partner with you and you want to sell through them, how will they gain? Do they want to add revenue and say, you know what, we'd like what Tim presented, we'd like to partner with you and create an additional revenue source that we both can profit from? Or do they want to add value? Maybe they want to add your product to a premium package. Maybe they want to bonus your product to some high-level group of clients. Maybe they want to use your product to open up new markets, all right? There's all kinds of ways you can have the sell-through conversation with the sell-to conversation, and sometimes they'd rather sell through than buy from you because they'd rather partner with you to create another profit center or more value. Option 3, rent or license. Invite them to use it internally and externally. You create a continuity annuity. So they can license for internal use, employees, teams, families, whoever, or they can rent it to give away to buyers, suppliers, vendors, influencers. So here's the last story I'll tell. In 1996, I got divorced and I decided to become a stay-at-home dad for the next 10 years. I was on the road 100 to 120 days as a speaker and trainer. And I got off the road and I had to replace virtually 100% of my income. So a client calls me up one day and he said, "Hey, Mitch, how are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm off the road and I'm not speaking or training anymore." He says, "I have a proposition for you." I said, "I'm all ears." He said, "You know, I know your stuff. What if every month you sent me a video, an audio, and a module of your program, and I train my people?" He says, kind of like, "I'd like to rent it, and at the end of the month, I'll send it back to you, and the next month you send me another one." I said, "Wait a second. Are you saying that, like Blockbuster, you know, Blockbuster, remember Blockbuster, you go rent the video and then you bring it back and you rent?" I said, "Are you telling me you want to rent my content?" He said, "Yeah, kind of." I said, "Oh my God, you don't have to send it back. You just gave me an amazing idea that's going to help me get back on my feet." I started to rent my content, sending one module, one video, one audio together every month. I called every one of my clients. I said, "How would you like to rent my content and present it to you?" And you train. It was kind of an early certification, but it wasn't a formal certification. I was able to replace 60 or 70% of my income to go to the post office twice a week and eventually have my assistant do it by renting. Think about this. We rent everything. We rent cars. We rent homes. We rent software. Why aren't we renting our content? Imagine this. You have a client, they can't afford to buy your $2,000 program for 100 people. They don't have 200 grand. And because there's no option, you walk away. What if you said to them, "Okay, what's your budget? What could you afford?" And they said, "Well, you know, maybe we could afford 10,000 a month or 20,000 a month. What if I rent this to you, especially now with digital technology like the Great Discovery, where everything is on a membership portal? Suppose I give you the keys to my real estate for 3 months or 6 months, and I charge you 10,000 or 20,000, and you use it for 3 months or 6 months. At the end of 3 months, you can give me back the keys, or you can keep renting, or you might decide, you know what, we've made some money, now we're ready to buy it, and I'll give you some credit on what you spent as a rental toward the purchase price." Just like an option to buy a home. If you rented a home, got an option to buy it, lived in it for a year, we could be renting our content to companies that can't afford literally to buy it or just don't want to buy it. And it gives you another way for people to try it without buying it. This was very lucrative for me. It got me back on my feet, and it actually became part of my deliverables. Here, this is the single one distinction that I will tell you has been the most valuable for me. Remember I said way back when that intellectual property is essence? So get this, you are IP. You, everything you put in form, everything you create comes from up here, your brain, all right? Well, now AI helps, but essentially you are the IP that creates the form. So if I had my druthers, the ultimate perfect IP play for me would be I take my phone and I say, you know what? I'm going to charge you $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, whatever the number works. And I'll go hang out on my hammock at the beach. And you call me whenever you need me. Because that call, when the stakes are high and time is short, I can help you solve a problem that might be a 6 or 7 figure problem. And you know what? As long as you keep me on retainer, you can have my IP. You can use my IP as long as you keep me on retainer. So now you can lead with your brain if they don't want your products or your IP. So ask yourself, ask your clients, what can I help you do? What can I help you accomplish? That might not include delivering IP, delivering training, delivering, videos or audios. How can you use me best? What's the range of services or intellect that I can bring you? And then what are you worth and how will you charge? And let me make one more distinction here. We all get paid for what we do. Us in the knowledge game, we get paid for what we know. We also get paid for what we have. Sadly, very few of us are getting paid for what we see. Yet what you see that nobody else sees, that maybe you're giving away to get paid for what you do, what you have, or what's the third? Get paid for what you have, what you see, what you do. I'm sorry, what you have, what you do. I forget it right off the bat. You get the point. So, real side story. Accounting firm calls me up. I've been working with them for years. They say, Mitch, we have a client. The client has a check. He has a check for 10 grand. He has $1 million problem. Anybody who could solve it gets a $10,000 check. Would you like to? We've talked to 3 guys. Nobody can figure it out. I said, sure, why not? What do I have to lose? We got on the phone. He tells me the problem. I swear to God, in a minute, I had a solution. I didn't know if the solution was the best one, the right one. I said, so let me ask a question, Bill. We have an hour booked for this call. Would you like me to take the whole hour? Because I can answer your question in 5 minutes. He said to me, Mitch, time is money. The faster you work, the more you're worth. Profound insight. The faster you work, the more you work, the more you're worth. It took me 5 minutes. I gave him my answer. The phone went dead for a minute. I figured, all right, well, I gave it my best shot. He says to me, I'll have the check mailed to you tomorrow. 2 things happened. One is I realized that for very important people, for all CEOs, people who are time is money, the shorter, the better. And secondly, if you can do a job in 1/10 the time and get the same results as somebody who takes 10 times as long, should you be paid less based on time, or should you be paid more based on being able to do it faster? It was a profound experience. And I began to realize that if I can get results quicker than others, I'm actually worth more than somebody who takes longer. Profound insight I learned from somebody else. And then the 5th combination, buy, sell, license, rent, and you, Many IP deals are customized combinations based on what they want, what they can invest. That's why you want to explore the highest and best options for them to buy, sell, and license. We have a formula, a 6-part formula called the Ultimate Licensing Formula that can help you license your most valuable IP, be paid well to be a content producer, find all size companies that can pay you to put their IP in front of tens of thousands of people, and use your IP as high value marketing. Now, I'm going to give you the 6 steps here. You can take a screenshot of this if you like. You want to assess and select your IP, identify needy, ready, and willing and able buyers who would like to solve a problem now. You can contact them, book the appointment. You meet with them to get what I call 3 magic words. You get alignment, you get agreement, and you get commitment. And then you recommend a solution and create a winning proposal, seal a deal, and sign a contract. Now, we teach this in one of our programs, but I want to point one thing out. I'm going to give you part 1, assess and select. This game is right here. This whole game of IP. Which assets are most valuable? Build a menu of main dishes and sides. What can they order a la carte? Can you create something new? Assemble a mini catalog of 3 to 5 pieces that people can buy, rent, or license, and ask yourself which parts, pieces, singles are most viable and valuable. That's the key. And once you have that little mini catalog, you can begin to go back to your existing clients, new clients, and talk to them in a whole different way. So here's your game plan. Integrate the IP and licensing mindset, assess and identify your IP, modularize, disassemble, repurpose, ask yourself, who can I sell to, who can I sell through, who can rent, and who can license. Know what to do to sell through, sell to, sell through, and license. So here's the very simple $100,000 game plan. To sell $100,000 of $2,000 products, you have to sell 50 of them, which means you probably have to have 100 conversations, 200 leads, 5 or more. In this case, if you wanted an extra 50 grand a year, 4,000 a month, find a piece of your IP that a company, an organization, or a business would pay you $1,000 a month for over a period of a year. You want 96,000, 8,000 a month? Find 4 companies at 2 grand, 8 companies at 1 grand. You sell those and you're 100 grand a year. And if you want to do 120,000, 10,000 a month, find 2 companies who will pay 5 grand or 4 companies that will pay 2,500. All right. This is a much simpler game than trying to sell one person, one product at a time. So here's how you do it. 5 steps. You start with your existing assets. You inventory what you have. Number 2, you build your IP bank. So you identify the licensing parts and pieces that companies will actually pay you for. You design an offer suite. So you create rental, license, and partnership offers that align with what your market needs. You package and value price for profit. You structure deals that protect your IP and pay you monthly, and then you sell it first and then build it to fit the buyer. You stop guessing what the market wants and you start getting paid before you produce. To win the new game of IP, know what to deliver and how to monetize, who will buy it, what companies will pay for it, where the opportunities hide, and they're hiding in plain sight right in front of you. Reach and approach decision makers, get meetings, and this is the most important part. Diagnose, assess, and then recommend solutions that they will accept and get them to do proposals with you. That was a game changer for me when I asked companies, would you do the proposal with me so that you could make sure I put in it what you want and leave out of it what you don't want. Structure a license deal for price and for value, and then scale your expertise. The payoff for you is to shift from a service provider to an IP entrepreneur and owner. To create intellectual assets you can sell, you can rent, you can license. to build recurring revenue streams that compound over time, and maybe most importantly, to enjoy the freedom, the focus, and fulfillment of doing what you love most. Ralph Waldo said, "The great teacher is not one who supplies the most facts, but the one in whose presence we become different people." John Wesley said, "Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can." And this guy here says, "I can't take my goals with me, but I will leave a piece of my soul with everyone I meet." I want to close by telling you, if you haven't gotten the VIP up to now, it may be the biggest mistake you're making. And just to add more value to the modest investment, I'm going to give you 5 bonuses. The first is a manifesto on the IP Money Advantage, how you can claim your share of the IP Money revolution. Second is my video training on the power of triangulation, how to get third-party partners to finance your licensing deals and monetize your IP. Number 3 is a video training on the 6 deadly mistakes that kill your IP deals and the most common pitfalls that derail your closing deals. Fourth is the 7 secrets to corporate selling, how to sell you and get your IP funded and paid for by corporations. And number 5 is the IP deal-making checklist, how to prepare, position, package, propose, and price your deals. And lastly, let me say that there's an old saying that when Cicero spoke, the crowd politely applauded and said, "Great speech." When Demosthenes spoke, the crowd rose as one and shouted, "Let's march." So I encourage you to be in the position of Demosthenes and take something that you got from this fabulous summit and begin to march. And I thank you very much for having me as your guest.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you so much. That was incredible.
Thank you, Stephen.
Absolutely. That was incredible. Does anyone have a question for Mitch? You either put it in the chat or raise your electronic hand.
Comments?
All right. We dig through these generous gifts. Let's see. Says this was so inspiring. Thank you, Mitch. Sunita is asking, do you need a lawyer to license IP?
You should have a lawyer to look over your deals. One thing I learned is if you're selling to companies, I used to let their lawyers, because they have lawyers on staff, I used to let their lawyers construct the legal document as long as we agreed on the business points. And then I to my attorney, and he would just look it over. So that big deal I did for $250,000, my legal fees were $750 because the companies have a whole staff of lawyers.
Right.
And so that's how I would do it. But yes, always get an attorney to look it over.
That's great. Well, thank you, Mitch, so much for sharing your lifelong journey of wisdom that you have. It's incredible. So thank you for that. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.